Manchester United have done their thing yet again, where just before the transfer window, they say they have no money to spend, they say they're not going to do anything, but Fabrizio Romano has confirmed they are lying. January deals are likely to happen. We've got a big update on Dan Ashworth and Paul Mitchell to United. Blanc deal essentially done, and lots of other interesting stories coming in from tier 1 sources like Romano, and then just general updates on Martial leaving, Casemiro leaving, all the latest for January, all the latest for the takeover. So smash a like, smash a subscribe. Let's get into it. So Fabrizio Romano said, despite management statements at the supporters forum, Manchester United are working behind the scenes on opportunities for the January transfer window. The club is talking to numerous agents for a striker due to the potential departure of one Anthony Martial. There's rumours of clubs like Fenerbahce and clubs in Turkey being interested in Anthony Martial because he will obviously leave for free in the summer. United are open to offloading him in January and then bringing in someone a little bit more reliable in the January window. Not a great striker, not a brilliant striker, but someone that Ten Hag thinks is a little bit more reliable, less injury prone, although Martial has not been injured this season. It was said by Romano that Manchester United are actively working on a potential new signings. They're speaking to the agents of some strikers. They've spoken to the representatives of Donny, Timo Werner and Serhoj Girassi as well. They said centre-back is also a position they could cover in January. Now, Fabrizio Romano did say about the centre-back position that is a priority, but he says he sees United getting a big centre-back in the summer, and January it might not be as much as of a big centre-back. It will depend on the funds raised, but there is an interest in the centre-back. We know there's a big interest in someone like Todibo as well. Now, obviously, Marlin, I don't think he's very good. To be honest, I think Girassi's having a good season, and I think if it's a 6-month loan, you're not too bothered about it to get you through to the end of the season to help out Højlund. But to be honest, I feel like he'll come to United and just be crap. He'll just be like Weghorst. I feel like he's had one good season at age 27 and he's at least having chances created for him. He doesn't do anything other than score goals, so it's not like he can really help out the team much if we're not creating anything for him. And then Timo Werner, who flopped in the Prem, is flopping at RB Leipzig right now, cannot get in the side. To be honest, I think Timo Werner might be the best of the three just because his pace would suit us in transition. He can play across the front three. And we know that he used to be able to score goals. But when we're not creating chances of being clinical, it's just like, none of those names really stand out. I'd probably rather have Martial because he's not got injured this season. I'd probably rather have Martial. But I'd say out of those three, I'd probably go for Timo Werner. Romano then said the words, "Don't trust 100% when Man United say they will not do anything in the January window." Romano is basically saying he knows United's going to do something in the January window, and they say this because they like to play broke to see if they can get players for cheaper, la-di-da. We play broke before every window to see if we can get the price reduced for certain players, and we still end up overpaying for players. It's clearly not working because Man United tax is a thing. In terms of other transfer news, obviously, Fenerbahce having a meeting with Anthony Martial about a transfer. The Turkish club wants to sign Martial all about Weghorst in January, so a bit of competition over Manchester United and ex-Manchester United strikers. Romano did confirm that Donny van de Beek has completed his Frankfurt medical and his loan move from United is now closed. That is a done deal, Donny van de Beek to Frankfurt, and I really hope that Donny goes to Frankfurt, he smashes it, he gets lots of love from the supporters because this guy's not really played football in 3 years. There's a good talented player. He was starting for Ajax in big games against Real Madrid to not even making the United bench ahead of Hannibal and Gore. I really hope that Donny goes to Germany. I think he'll suit the league. I think he's a very talented player. He's a hard-working player. And the thing about Donny van de Beek is we've had a lot of toxic players that caused a lot of problems. We had a lot of players that caused problems because they weren't playing, and toxic players. And Donny van de Beek was not one of them. Donny van de Beek was arguably the worst treated player at Man United in the last few years in terms of just how he was ignored. But he didn't make a fuss. Sancho gets ignored a little bit, makes a massive fuss. Did you see how much Donny was ignored? Players like Bailly gets dropped, makes a massive fuss. Rojo made a fuss. Pogba made a fuss. Cavani made a fuss. Donny was ignored and he never made a fuss, and I always hope that he'll do well because he's a top professional. And there's another rumour going about, and it's from J. Felix Diaz, who isn't, to be honest, the most reliable source, so I wouldn't say there's much in this, but he's claiming that Casemiro has received a big offer from Saudi Arabia in the January transfer window. I personally don't think that's true because I've heard other stories that would suggest that is not true, but we obviously will include it. You never know, not the most reliable source, but if other more reliable sources start saying about this, then maybe there is something in Casemiro to Saudi. But I've always heard that Casemiro is not going anywhere in the January window, and I've heard that from reliable people. Now, Fabrizio Romano basically confirms that Blanc is a done deal. I mean, the fact that Blanc has been spotted at Old Trafford recently having talks with those at Old Trafford, basically we know that Blanc and Brailsford are coming in. Obviously, there are people still telling us that Jim Ratcliffe's deal is going to fall through and it's going to be Qatar, but these people are just lying for clicks on social media. Look, Blanc and Brailsford, that is essentially done. And Fabrizio Romano has again confirmed this. He said on Blanc, he's really close to getting the job. It is just about the final details, and then Blanc is expected to become the new Manchester United CEO. He has big experience, so he's considered the perfect man for the job and for what Manchester United need in that position to protect the club and to protect the team in some specific moments. Blanc is considered absolutely perfect after the experience he got not only at the Ineos Group, but Juventus and PSG, and it's expected that he will come in. At Juventus, he came in, he trimmed down the wage bill because Juventus were in a financial crisis. He helped Juventus get out of a financial crisis, got rid of a few big name players, got rid of toxic players, and then got Juventus back on track. At PSG, he helped with the initial stages of their rebuild, but he actually established them as their biggest brand in terms of the sort of consumer side of sport. Man City and PSG both got taken over by rich owners. Do you see lots of people in Man City shirts? No. Do you see lots of people in PSG shirts? Yes. Everyone wants PSG shirt. He got those big deals with Jordan. The commercial side was brilliant. So he's been brilliant in his jobs. Then you've got Dan Ashworth likely coming in that's really good at resetting the culture and helping with the rebuild. And then Paul Mitchell coming in with recruitment, which would be massive. So let's dive into the takeover news. So Jack Talbot, who has been a pretty credible source throughout this whole takeover, said this: Dan Ashworth is interested in becoming Man United sporting director. However, he will only accept the move if he's significantly backed and allowed the same freedom he's been afforded at Newcastle, and that Ineos will look to bring in both Dan Ashworth and Paul Mitchell as the main leaders of Man United's recruitment department. It's been said that Dan Ashworth will kind of oversee the culture and Paul Mitchell will do the final details on recruitment and work together. But Dan Ashworth is very much open to leaving Newcastle to come to Manchester United, which I find very surprising according to other reports, but he'll only do that if he believes he'll be backed at United. Now, Newcastle obviously do not want to lose Dan Ashworth. He's fantastic guy. He's done a brilliant job at Brighton, brilliant job at Newcastle. And look, if we get Dan Ashworth in, that's a big boost, because I don't think he'd come to Man United unless he generally thought that he was going to be backed. He was actually thought the project was exciting. And I think if we get Dan Ashworth, he must believe that this project is exciting. He's going to be backed, even though the Glazers are still here. It was also said by James Ducker that Jim Ratcliffe is looking to bring in an additional recruitment chief to work under Brailsford and Dan Ashworth if he gets the sporting director role. So it's sort of being suggested now by good journalists that Dan Ashworth's going to be sporting director, Paul Mitchell's going to be recruitment, and Brailsford is sort of going to be the additional person. So basically, Paul Mitchell's replacing Fletcher, Dan Ashworth could be replacing Murtagh, and Blanc could be replacing Arnold, which is literally the equivalent of going from, I don't even know, as I said, Anne Hegarty to Margot Robbie. It is that kind of different. This is what we've needed to do for a while. And as I said in my video last night, if you haven't watched my video last night, go back and watch that, because I spoke about Dan Ashworth, what he did at Newcastle and Brighton, and why this is good. But United need this for a while, because we spent 1.4 billion, the second most out of any, or third most now. Chelsea spent those, the third most out of any Premier League side post Fergie, and we've not been the third best side. We spent more than Arsenal and Liverpool to look far off them. And I think, if we have someone that's going to spend that money well, that's going to be a big boost. In terms of other news, the Mail did speak a bit more about the Varane situation and said that Varane basically took an umbrage at Ten Hag for saying that he was left out of the Manchester derby for tactical reasons and was unhappy with veteran Johnny Evans was selected ahead of him on several occasions. There is suggestions that Varane was dropped for 6 weeks because he had to go at Ten Hag for not playing him in the Manchester derby. Who knows what's going on, but what we do know is Rafa Varane is our best centre-back. He's back playing. Whatever's gone on with him and Ten Hag is obviously behind him. He's not Jadon Sancho. He's probably apologised, and things are all good there as well. And Rafa Varane's a top professional. I don't want us to be getting rid of him as well. And then we're going to get into what John Murtagh said. So Fabrizio Romano said that this is basically what Man United always say, but he said don't believe this. John Murtagh did say, looking at the January transfer window, we don't expect to be particularly busy. There will always be opportunities, particularly in finding opportunities for players who aren't playing as much as they like it. And that's what he said. He said, however, there's always been a consistent saying that we do not consider January to be the best time to do business, and our recruitment strategy remains focused on the summer. Well, of course, Man United never do anything in January. We never, ever do anything in January, apart from crap deals. But Romano's basically said, look, United could be doing a few offloading in January, and they could be bringing in a centre-back, depending on funds. So, yeah, I think we will do something in January. I do think it's going to be like last January, like Sabitzer and of course I think it's going to be poor deals, but I do think we'll probably do something in January. They always pretend we don't, but they always panic and do something last minute, especially because we're not on track for Champions League. It might give them a bit of motivation to spend. Listen, people, please do smash that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. I'll be back live at 6 p.m. tonight. See you then. Bye.